Welcome back to the Deep Dive, everybody. Today we're diving into something I think a lot of our listeners will find really interesting. It's all about the physical training side of judo.
Okay.
And you guys sent in this great resource, Training and Conditioning for Judo. Really, really in-depth stuff here. So we're going to try to pull out some of the most important and interesting insights to help you guys really, up your game in terms of judo training.
Yeah. And I think, what's cool about this is it covers a lot of ground, right? It's not just about, lifting weights or running. It's about planning your training, recovery, different training methods, testing, really the whole package.
Right. So we're talking like a holistic approach
Yeah.
to actually getting in shape for judo, not just some generic workout routine.
Exactly. And what's really interesting too is, this book talks about how physical training for judo, it's been influenced by different countries and approaches. You've got
Uh,
France, Britain, the US, Brazil, even Japan, all with their own little
oh,
twists.
cool. So it's not like there's just one right way to do it.
No, not at all. It's more like a melting pot of ideas, and this book kind of gives you a glimpse into how those different perspectives have shaped the way we train for judo today.
I like that. Okay, so how about a little bit of context here?
Yeah.
Like, how did we even get to where we are with physical training for judo? Was it always like this, with all these different influences?
Well, in the early days, sports training was pretty heavily influenced by track and field. Lots of running, some basic strength work. But as judo and other combat sports evolved, it became clear that track and field training wasn't really cutting it. You need something more specific.
Makes sense. You're not just running around in judo, right?
Exactly. So that's when you start seeing other disciplines coming in, like weightlifting for pure strength, bodybuilding, powerlifting for explosive power. And then, of course, you have the medical field. Doctors and physiotherapists, they started emphasizing injury prevention, the importance of a strong core, understanding how the body moves. Even gymnastics played a role, that focus on body control, core strength. It's been this fascinating evolution.
So it really is a mix of all these different schools of thought coming together to create something that's specific to judo.
Exactly.
And speaking of people who know their stuff, the author of this book, Aurélien Broussel-Derval, he's got some serious credentials, master's degrees. He's worked at INSEP, which is like the French National Institute of Sport. He's got black belts in judo and BJJ,
Wow.
coached at the Olympic level. He's the technical director at Circle Tissier, which is another big name in judo. And he's written other books, too. This guy clearly knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, his background is impressive. He bridges that gap between being an elite athlete and a top-level coach.
Yeah.
So when he talks about training, it's coming from a place of experience, not just theory.
Okay, so let's get to the heart of it. What's our mission here today for our listeners?
Simple. We're going to break down the most important stuff from this book, the stuff you can actually use to improve your judo training.
All right, sounds good.
We're going to give you that core understanding of how to prepare your body for judo, the why behind the methods, so you can train smarter, not just harder.
I like that. All right, so the book starts by asking a really interesting question. It's like, what even counts as physical training for judo, right? It outlines 5 main areas that a physical trainer should focus on. What are those, like the foundational fields?
Okay, so the first one is all about prevention and return to sport programs. Now, this isn't about replacing your physiotherapist.
Right.
It's about integrating injury prevention into your training. So we're talking about things like exercises that improve proprioception, which is your body's awareness in space. We're talking about strengthening your core, making sure your body's well-balanced, maintaining flexibility, and having smart recovery strategies.
So it's like building that foundation of resilience so you can actually train harder without getting hurt.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, the book also mentions this shift away from general physical training and
Yeah.
toward more specific methods. Why is that happening? Like, what's driving that change?
It's the reality of competition today. Judo athletes, they often have less time to train. The competition calendar is packed. So your training needs to be very focused, directly aligned with what you actually do in judo. The days of just doing some generic strength program and hoping it'll help your judo, those are gone.
So we're getting more specialized. Does that mean we should just ditch the weights altogether and only do judo-specific drills?
That's actually a question the book asks, should we put away our weights? And the answer is a little more nuanced.
Okay.
Look, judo is obviously a skill-based sport, right? Technique is king.
Right.
But you still need a certain level of physical ability to make those techniques work. You can't just be good at the moves if you're not strong enough or powerful enough to execute them.
So weights are still in the picture, but we need to use them in a way that actually benefits our judo.
Right. And that's where this concept of integrated training comes in.
Okay, so what's that all about?
Integrated training is about connecting your off-mat work, like weightlifting, back to the specific movements and demands of judo. It's about finding exercises that actually mimic or directly support what you do on the mat.
So it's not just about being strong, it's about being strong in ways that actually make you a better judoka.
Exactly. That's the goal, bridging that gap between the gym and the dojo.
I like that. Now, the book mentions some tools that can be really helpful for this kind of integrated training. Let's talk about resistance bands. Apparently, judokas were pretty early adopters of using these. What made them so relevant?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, right? Judo athletes were among the first to really utilize resistance bands for strength work. And the reason is really simple. When you perform a throw in judo, your opponent is resisting you, and that resistance is usually increasing until they break or you complete the throw. Resistance bands, they mimic that same kind of progressive resistance.
So it's like you're training your muscles to work against that increasing force, which is exactly what you're doing in a real match.
Exactly. Plus, resistance bands allow for a greater range of motion. You can really simulate those judo movements more closely.
That's cool.
And of course, they're super convenient, lightweight, portable. You can use them anywhere.
Yeah, that makes sense. The book even gives some specific resistance band exercises that are especially useful for judo. Can you walk us through a couple of those?
Sure. One that stands out is called coordinated rhythmic pulls. It's great for improving your coordination, getting your heart rate up, and strengthening your shoulders, back, triceps, biceps, all
Wow.
those muscles you use for gripping and pulling in judo.
So it's like a multi-purpose exercise. How does it work?
You basically jump with a handle in each hand, and as you're jumping, your legs are moving in and out. And at the same time, your arms are extending straight out and then pulling back in.
Okay,
You can make it harder by adding lunges as you pull or by
yeah,
doing different arm movements.
got it. So it's really targeting those pulling mechanics that are so crucial in judo. What about another example?
Another interesting one is called the Beethoven. It focuses on leg strength and cardiovascular fitness. You stand on the middle of the band with both feet holding the ends, and then you just alternate kicking forward and backward.
Okay, that sounds simple enough, but I bet it's a good workout.
It is. You can make it more challenging by using a thicker band or putting the band around your ankles instead of holding it in your hands.
Right?
The book also mentions a simple circuit you can do with resistance bands. It involves upright rows, push-ups, and squats, done one after the other. Great for building overall strength and endurance.
That sounds like a good one to try. Okay, now let's talk about another essential aspect of judo, core strength. The book really emphasizes just how important a strong core is.
Yeah, core strength is absolutely crucial in judo. It doesn't matter if you're attacking with a throw or defending on the ground, your core is involved. It's what gives you stability and power.
Right. And it says that judokas develop some core strength just from doing judo, but they still need to do additional exercises to really maximize it.
Exactly. The natural movements in judo build a foundation, but to really take your core strength to the next level, you need those more challenging exercises.
Okay, so what are some of the advanced core exercises the book recommends?
One that's really interesting is the inverted plank. You balance your feet on an exercise ball while a partner holds a belt around your hips. It's tough, really forces you to engage your core to maintain that straight line.
Sounds like a good one.
Another is called ball balance. You kneel on an exercise ball and then extend your hips, holding a medicine ball overhead.
Okay, I can see how that would work your core, trying to stay balanced on the ball.
And a partner can make it harder by pushing the ball or the medicine ball, adding that extra instability.
Right. What else is there?
There's the crawl with pulling and rotation.
Yeah.
You're on your hands and knees, and every couple of steps you pull a dumbbell towards your ribs and then rotate your torso. It's very dynamic, works your core in different planes of motion.
Got it.
And then there's the classic bridge exercise. Simple, but it really hits your abs, glutes, and hamstrings.
Right, so it's like a full body exercise disguised as a core exercise.
Yeah, pretty much. The book gives you sets, reps, rest periods, and how to progress with each of these exercises.
Now, I've always heard that there's a right way and a wrong way to do ab exercises. Does the book address that?
Oh, absolutely. It stresses the importance of protecting your lower back by not overarching or hyperextending your spine. It recommends stretching your abs and hip flexors after every core workout.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Tight hips can definitely affect your lower back.
It also advises against using momentum, pulling on your head, doing the same exercises over and over, and kicking your legs too low.
Those are all things I've heard before, but never really understood why they were bad.
Well, they can put unnecessary strain on your lower back and actually reduce the effectiveness of the exercise. It's about working smarter, not harder. And the book really emphasizes that doing abs properly should involve some discomfort. If you don't feel that burn, you're probably not engaging the right muscles.
Good to know. The book also mentions how to know when you're ready to progress to harder core exercises. What are the signs that you should level up?
There are a few things to watch out for. If your lower back starts to feel weak, if you start trembling a lot during the exercise, or if your upper spine is curving to compensate, those are all signs that you might need to dial it back a bit.
Okay, so it's like listening to your body, knowing when you're pushing too far too soon.
Exactly. And this kind of core strength we're talking about, it's directly applicable to judo. It helps you maintain your posture and holds, control your body when you're completing a throw.
So it's not just about looking good, it's about performing better on the mat.
That's what it's all about.
Okay, let's shift gears to the overall principles of strength training for judo. What are some of the key ideas and methods outlined in the book?
So the main goal of strength training, according to the book, is to increase the tension your muscles can generate.
So basically make your muscles stronger.
More than that, actually. It's about making them more capable of producing force, which helps you move more powerfully and explosively. And the best way to achieve this is through lifting weights.
Okay.
When you lift weights, you're stimulating more muscle fibers more quickly and more intensely, which leads to strength gains. The book also highlights that the different methods we're going to talk about are all about improving how efficiently your nervous system activates your muscles.
So it's not just about building big muscles, it's about making your nervous system work better.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. Now, there are a few important guidelines to keep in mind when incorporating strength training into a judo program.
Like what?
First, focus on polyarticular movements. Those are exercises that involve multiple joints working together, which is more similar to the complex movements you do in judo.
Right.
It also emphasizes that you should only do exercises that you've mastered with perfect technique. Don't try to lift heavy if your form is bad.
That makes sense.
Another important point is to start with a good preparatory phase. That means getting your body physically, mentally, and technically ready to start lifting heavier weights. You don't just jump into it.
So it's like a gradual buildup.
Exactly. And then complete recovery between sets is crucial. Don't rush through your workouts. Let your muscles recover before you hit them again. And of course, always have a spotter when you're lifting heavy for safety.
Okay, those are all great tips. Now, practically speaking, when is the best time to fit in strength training sessions during the week if you're also training judo?
You can schedule them throughout the week, but remember, your muscles need 48 to 72 hours to recover properly after a hard lifting session.
So maybe 2 or 3 times a week max.
Yeah, that's a good starting point. The book says you can get excellent results with 3 strength sessions a week and even significant progress with just 2.
Okay, so you don't have to live in the gym to get stronger.
Exactly.
What about stretching? There's
Yeah.
always so much debate about the best time to stretch and how to do it properly. What does the book say about that?
Yeah, stretching is a tricky one. The book makes a distinction between static stretching, where you hold a stretch, and dynamic stretching, where you're moving through a range of motion.
Okay.
It says that static stretching isn't very effective for preparing your muscles for strength or power work. It's not going to give you any immediate benefits before you lift.
So no static stretching before lifting.
Not really, no.
What about after a workout?
Also not ideal. Your muscles are still contracted right after a workout, so stretching them can actually cause tiny tears in the fibers. It's best to wait about 10 minutes before doing any static stretching.
So during those 10 minutes, can you just relax or is there something you should be doing?
Actually, there's an interesting technique mentioned in the book. It's called antagonist muscle stretching.
What's that?
It means stretching the muscles that are opposite to the ones you just worked. So, for example, if you're doing pull-ups, you would stretch your chest muscles during your rest periods.
Oh, interesting. I've never heard of that.
It can actually help reduce muscle tension and improve performance. It's a bit counterintuitive, but it works.
Good to know. So we've covered when not to stretch. When is a good time to do it?
Well, dynamic stretching is great as part of your warm-up routine. It gets your blood flowing, improves mobility, and prepares your body for the more intense work to come.
Okay. And static stretching is best saved for after that 10-minute cool down period.
Exactly.
Now, the book gives some examples of different strength training programs that can be effective for judo. Can you give us a quick rundown of some of those?
Sure. One example is a hypertrophy strength endurance phase. This is where you'd be doing sets of 8 to 10 reps with a weight that challenges you but allows you to maintain good form. It's all about building muscle and endurance.
Okay.
Another option is pyramid training. You could do an ascending pyramid where you increase the weight and decrease the reps with each set, or a triangle pyramid where you do the opposite.
So you're constantly challenging your muscles in different ways.
Exactly. And then there's a static dynamic phase where you combine exercises that involve holding a static contraction with exercises that involve movement. It's all about building both types of strength.
Interesting.
The book also talks about combined methods like doing a long hold followed immediately by a fast movement. And then there's elastic strength work, which is basically plyometrics.
Plyometrics, that's like jumping exercises, right?
Yeah, things like box jumps, jump squats, stuff like that. Great for developing explosive power.
Okay, so we've got a lot of options for strength training. But here's a big question. Does strength in the gym automatically translate to better judo? The book seems to suggest that it's not that simple.
Yeah, that's a really important point. Just because you can bench press a certain weight doesn't mean you'll have a better grip when you're fighting for a sleeve grip in judo.
So you can be strong, but not judo strong.
Exactly. The strength you gain needs to be specific to the types of movements, the joint angles, and the speed you use in judo. It's about training those specific muscle groups in ways that directly support your judo technique.
Right. And I guess it also goes back to that idea of integrated training, connecting the work you do off the mat to what you do on the mat.
Exactly. You have to bridge that gap. And the book actually introduces a modified version of the bench press called the proprioceptive bench press that's designed to be more relevant to judo and potentially safer.
Oh, interesting. What's different about it?
So instead of using a regular bench, you use a narrower bench or even an exercise ball. And you also incorporate a resistance band. This creates instability, which forces your core muscles to work much harder to stabilize your body.
So it's like a core workout and a bench press at the same time.
Kind of, yeah. It's a more challenging exercise that engages the muscles you use in judo in a more functional way.
Okay, I'm definitely going to have to try that one. Now, the book also delves into different squat variations that can be really beneficial for judo.
Yeah, squats are great for building overall lower body strength, but there are variations that target different aspects of what you need in judo.
Like what?
So the barbell front squat is good for beginners because it encourages a more upright posture. It's also good for people with back or shoulder issues.
Okay.
Then there's the unbalanced squat, which is done with a lighter weight. It helps you work on your side-to-side stability, which is obviously important in judo.
Right, you're constantly shifting your weight and trying to stay balanced.
Exactly. And then you've got the unstable squat, which is done on an unstable surface like a Bosu ball. It's great for strengthening your core and improving your overall balance.
I can see how that would be relevant.
And finally, there's the single leg squat, which is essential for addressing any strength imbalances between your left and right sides.
Right, because even though judo is a symmetrical sport, you're not always going to be using both sides equally.
Exactly. So those are just a few of the squat variations that the book recommends for judokas.
Awesome. Now, grip strength is obviously crucial in judo. The book talks about using ropes as a training tool for this. What's the reasoning behind that?
Well, ropes have always been a traditional tool in judo dojos. They're great for developing pulling strength and grip strength. But the book emphasizes that a strong grip in judo isn't just about brute force. It's also about technique, precision, being able to read your opponent's movements, and anticipating what they're going to do.
So it's more than just squeezing as hard as you can.
Exactly. It's a whole body effort that involves your legs, your hips, your core. And ropes are great for developing that kind of coordinated strength. The book also makes the point that gripping a rope is a lot more similar to gripping a judogi than gripping a smooth metal bar.
Makes sense. It's about specificity of training.
Right, and there are different rope exercises you can do, like full rope climbs, fast climbs with controlled descents, eccentric rope exercises where you focus on slowly lowering yourself down.
Okay, that sounds like a challenging workout. Now let's talk about endurance training for judo. Even though a judo match isn't a marathon, it's clear that you need a good level of endurance.
Yeah, absolutely. While a single match might not last that long, a judo tournament can involve multiple matches in a day. You need to be able to recover quickly and maintain your performance throughout the competition.
So it's not just about surviving one match. It's about being able to perform at a high level over and over again.
Right. And on top of that, you need endurance to get through those grueling training sessions.
The book talks about both aerobic and lactic demands. Can you explain why aerobic capacity is so important for judo, even though the activity is often explosive and doesn't last for hours on end?
So, while judo does involve those high-intensity bursts, a strong aerobic base is essential for recovering between those efforts. Think of it like this. Your aerobic capacity is like the engine of your car. If you have a bigger, more efficient engine, you can recover faster, you can keep going for longer, and you're not going to run out of gas as quickly.
Makes sense. So, even though a judo match isn't a pure endurance event, having good aerobic fitness helps you perform better in those short bursts of high intensity.
Exactly, and it also helps you recover more quickly between matches and between training sessions.
Got it. What about training methods for increasing that ability to produce those repeated high-intensity efforts? The book mentions something called intermittent work as a really effective way to boost aerobic power. What's that all about?
Intermittent work is basically interval training. It's about alternating short periods of very high intensity with periods of active recovery. You're pushing your body to its limits, then giving it a short break, then pushing it again.
So it's like HIA training,
Yeah, similar concept.
right?
And it's very effective for improving your VO2 max, which is a measure of how well your body uses oxygen.
Okay. And it also mentions using cardio machines like treadmills in a way that's more relevant to judo. How does that work?
So while it's great to do judo-specific drills for endurance, sometimes it can be helpful to use machines to add variety or to work on specific aspects of your fitness, but it's important to do it in a way that's actually beneficial for judo.
So not just mindless jogging on the treadmill.
No, not at all. The book gives examples of incorporating drills like side steps, backward running, even turning around on the treadmill to make it more dynamic and similar to the movements you do in
Oh,
judo.
that's interesting. So you're actually using the treadmill to improve your footwork and balance.
Exactly. It's about thinking outside the box and making your training as specific as possible.
Okay. And step training is another method mentioned in the book. What are the benefits of that?
Step training is a really versatile exercise that can be used to improve your cardiovascular fitness, burn calories, and increase your endurance.
Sounds simple enough.
It is, but you can vary the intensity and the duration to target different aspects of your fitness. You can focus on speed, resistance, or endurance depending on your goals.
So it's like a customizable workout.
Exactly.
Now, the book really stresses this idea of focused and integrated physical training. What does that mean in practice for a judoka?
Basically, it means that everything you do in your physical training should have a clear purpose, and that purpose should be to make you a better judoka. It's about connecting the dots between your physical conditioning and your performance on the mat.
So it's not about being generally fit. It's about being specifically fit for judo.
Exactly. And that might mean incorporating judo-specific movements into your strength and conditioning routines.
Oh,
It's about making sure that every exercise you do is serving a specific purpose in your overall judo development.
got it. And the book gives some concrete examples of how to enhance endurance by combining different judo activities like randori, uchikomi, and yakusoku gaiko. Can you explain how those work together?
Sure. So effective judo endurance comes from training at the right intensity, not just for long durations.
Right, because a judo match is a series of high-intensity bursts, not a steady-state effort.
Exactly. So the idea is to structure your training sessions to mimic that pattern with alternating periods of high effort and active recovery. And you can use randori, uchikomi, and yakusoku gaiko in different combinations to achieve that.
So, for example, you might do a few minutes of intense randori, then a few minutes of uchikomi, then a few minutes of yakusoku gaiko, and keep cycling through those.
Yeah, that's one way to do it. You can also vary the duration and intensity of each activity to create a more challenging workout. The book gives some specific examples of how to do this.
And it also mentions this concept of accelerating throws by training with contrasting loads, both heavy and light. What's the principle behind that?
So the idea is to use heavier loads to build strength and power, and then lighter loads to train speed and explosiveness.
Okay.
You might do a set of uchikomi where you're lifting a heavier partner, and then immediately do a set with a lighter partner, focusing on speed and technique.
So you're basically teaching your body to move more quickly and powerfully by contrasting the two types of effort.
Exactly. It's a technique that's often used in weightlifting and other sports, and it can be very effective for improving your throwing power in judo.
Now let's move on to an area that's often overlooked, but incredibly important in judo.
Yeah.
Balance and proprioception. What exactly is proprioception and why is it so important for a judoka?
Proprioception is basically your body's sense of where it is in space. It's what allows you to move without having to constantly think about where your limbs are.
Okay.
And it's crucial in judo because you're constantly shifting your weight, changing direction, and trying to maintain your balance while disrupting your opponent's balance.
Right. It's a very dynamic sport.
Exactly. And if your proprioception is good, you'll be able to react more quickly, move more efficiently, and avoid injuries.
Got it. So how do you train proprioception?
There are lots of exercises you can do, both on and off the mat. The book recommends using equipment like balance discs, exercise balls, and balance boards to challenge your balance and force your body to adapt.
Okay, those sound familiar.
Yeah, they're pretty common tools,
Mm.
but the key is to use them in a way that's specific to judo.
Right, not just standing on a balance board for the sake of it.
Exactly. You want to be doing exercises that mimic the movements you make in judo so that your body learns to react instinctively in those situations.
The book also talks about specific considerations for training older athletes. What are some key things to keep in mind when working with senior judokas?
As we age, our bodies naturally start to decline, so it's important to adjust our training accordingly.
Makes sense.
The book recommends longer and more thorough warm-ups for older athletes with a focus on areas that tend to get stiff and sore, like the neck, ankles, hips, and lower back.
Okay.
It also suggests incorporating light stretching and being mindful of potential weight gain and increased stress on the joints.
So basically being more careful and listening to your body more.
Exactly. And it's also important to adjust the intensity and volume of training.
So no more throwing grandpa through the air.
Maybe not with the same intensity as you would a younger athlete. The book suggests that a more relaxed style of randori, closer to the cooperative practice of yakusoku gaiko, might be more beneficial for older judokas.
Interesting. So it's about adapting the training to fit the individual's needs and abilities.
Exactly. And that goes for all athletes, not just older ones.
Now, what about training programs for women in judo? Are there any specific physiological differences that need to be taken into account?
Yes, there are some key differences. The book mentions that women tend to store and use fat differently than men.
Okay.
This means that their nutritional and training strategies might need to be adjusted slightly. They might need to consume slightly fewer carbohydrates and focus on training that optimizes fat utilization.
Interesting. So it's not just a matter of scaling down a men's program. It's about understanding those physiological differences.
Right. And the book also notes that for weight management, a combination of intense anaerobic exercise and strength training might be more effective for women than just doing lots of cardio.
So it's challenging some of the conventional wisdom about weight loss.
Yeah, it is. And then, of course, there's the issue of the female athlete triad.
What's that?
It's a combination of disordered eating, amenorrhea, and osteoporosis. It's something that all coaches and female athletes should be aware of because it can have serious health consequences.
Okay, good to know. Now, the book talks about two key phases in developing maximum strength. Can you explain those?
Sure. So the first phase is all about neural adaptations. That means your nervous system is becoming more efficient at activating your muscles.
So you're getting stronger without actually getting bigger.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like your brain is learning to use your muscles more effectively.
Okay.
The second phase is hypertrophy, which is where you actually start to build muscle mass. This phase takes longer, but it's what gives you those visible gains in size and strength.
Got it. So it's like two stages of strength development. The first one being more about nervous system efficiency, and the second one being about muscle growth.
Exactly. And the book advises against spending too long in that pure hypertrophy phase because it can make you feel less coordinated and agile. It's important to keep incorporating judo-specific movements into your training to make sure that the strength you gain actually translates to the mat.
Right. So it's not just about being big and strong. It's about being judo big and strong.
Exactly.
Now, the book also stresses the importance of regularly testing your physical potential. Why is that so important?
Testing is crucial for a few reasons. First, it gives you a baseline measurement of your current fitness level. You need to know where you're starting from to track your progress.
Makes sense.
Second, it allows you to see if your training program is actually working. If you're not seeing improvements in your test results, you might need to adjust your training.
So it's like feedback for your training.
Yeah, exactly. And third, it can help you identify any weaknesses or imbalances that you need to address. Maybe your grip strength is lagging behind, or your aerobic fitness isn't where it needs to be.
Okay, those are all good reasons to test. What are some of the tests the book recommends?
There are lots of different tests you can do, and the book provides a good overview. For aerobic endurance, there's the Luke Leisure shuttle run test.
Hmm.
For agility, there's the cone drill. Grip strength can be measured with a dynamometer.
Okay.
For explosive lower body power, you can do standing long jumps or sergeant jumps. There's a test for alertness, which measures your reaction time. And there's a movement frequency test, which measures how.